Hey everybody, welcome to this special Sherloc Red Alert. Our findings, Juliana, are in on the precious metals industry. And we're excited to share this, aren't we?
Very excited.
Stories ranging from the normal to the really, really weird.
Really weird.
Yeah, you guys will hear about that in a second. So here's what we're going to do in the special report. We're going to cover what's going on, what's on the horizon, what we see coming next, so that you're a step ahead of everybody else. And then we're going to give you our recommendation. We're going to tell you for a minute about the things that we're doing. We get that question so much, we figured we would just share.
Right.
Right? Okay, so if you've been under a rock the last couple of months and you haven't been following precious metals, 3 things going on right now that you may not be aware of. Central banks in the last quarter here in 2022, over 300 tons of gold.
Holy wow.
So they're buying gold reserves at a record rate. In the month of September, it actually exceeded 400 tons.
I wonder why.
Me too. Do you think they know something that you don't know? Or maybe they know you know, and they're trying to make sure that the stuff's not there?
Right.
That's about $20 billion in gold reserves that are being scooped up by central banks. So these are the people that issue money to you, right? And by the way, everything that we're sharing with you, when you're watching this, you'll see it in the information section of the video. We'll actually link to each of the pieces that we're talking about here. So that's number 1. Central banks around the world are buying a ton of gold. Number 2, the Wall Street Journal reported not too long ago that catalytic converter thefts are through the roof. Now, you may have heard about this in the news, right? You're like, well, who steals a catalytic converter? Is that crackhead or what?
Someone who does their research.
Right, because it's way more sophisticated than that. So from the report, here's what the Wall Street Journal says. They're stealing catalytic converters because of the amount of precious metals and the type of precious metals that are in them. Let's see, rhodium, palladium, platinum. All very expensive, by the way.
And the batteries?
No, in the catalytic converter. So the basic version is, here's what a catalytic converter does. It basically takes all of your emissions and makes them less emission-like. So that makes people who are into green energy pretty happy, right? Well, the way that that gets done, oddly enough, the path to green is by metals extracted from the earth. The 3 metals that I just mentioned, rhodium, palladium, and platinum, are some of the most expensive and the rarest on earth.
So just to take a second, I mean, does that sound logical? Like, just on a human level, like, is that something that we should be doing?
Well, you ask yourself the follow-on question, right? Where's the money going? Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Here's what's interesting, by the way. If you happen to own a Prius, you're more prone to get your catalytic converter taken. Do you know why? There are more of those precious metals in your catalytic converter, so your car can be all green and fancy. Right, so that's number 2.
So we should actually talk about what it takes to get all those metals, to put it in the catalytic converter, right? To be able to push that Prius to be green.
Absolutely right. Interesting to think about, right? Because you're told we need to go green, we need to do it for the climate, we need to do it eco, all of this whole thing. Isn't it interesting that the main ingredients that help something like a Prius to be more energy efficient or ecologically friendly have to be extracted from the ground, which doesn't happen with wind or air or solar. It happens with diesel and heavy machinery and all the stuff that you don't want, I guess, if you're into that thing. So that's the second thing going on. That one is also really important. As we get into what's on the horizon, it's really going to make sense to you. If you don't own those metals, it's probably a good idea to look into what you can get your hands on. And if you do, it's a really good idea to hold on to it. Okay. The third one that we found is just kind of weird, though.
This is very strange.
So
I almost wish you hadn't told me. That way I could have had like an, authentic reaction to the situation. Because I was like, what are those?
So you guys can tell we're different than other research reports or studies that you get, right? Our goal is to not put you to sleep. It's us.
Right.
It's Juliana and RC. This is our natural state. This is how we look at data. This is how we explain it to people. So we're not going to put you to sleep here. But this one was really odd when we were doing our research. So in Kyoto, Japan, in Japan in general, the majority of people after death are cremated. That's almost standard, right? So Kyoto's funeral hall is a pretty busy place. From April to December of last year, they did 13,000 cremations.
Wow.
Well, what's interesting is that when you do a cremation, right, you get ashes. Most times they're in an urn. If somebody in your family passes and they're cremated, they give it to you. Well, in Japan, there are certain customs that are very old where they'll only take certain bones and then the rest they'll leave behind.
Bones?
So, yeah, they'll take certain bones or whatever's left over. I don't understand all the details, but here's where it gets interesting in the whole scheme of things, is that the Kyoto Funeral Hall was left with a pile of ashes, right? And they're like, wow, we're getting kind of full here. So they started to sift through them. Guess what they found? Precious metals.
How interesting, huh?
Right? Somebody goes in, has a filling in, they die, they're cremated. The gold, the
And there
silver,
is-
whatever is still left. So here were some numbers that came from the pile of stuff, ashes, people, that the Kyoto Funeral Home got. In the pile, almost 16 pounds of gold.
Wow.
That's a lot of teeth, right? Almost a half pound of platinum, fancy. 47 pounds of silver.
I can see that. That makes sense.
That's a lot of silver, right? And 14 pounds of palladium.
Wow.
So think about it. If someone passes and they're cremated, if they're in traditional garb, they've probably got gold or silver on whatever they're wearing, and maybe they're wearing a ring and they've got stuff in their teeth and who knows what else is in their body. Well, all that stuff's left over. So
that's just strange. I mean, like I can see the fillings and whatnot, but that's a lot of metals for.
I guess when you're going through tens of thousands of people, you come up with a lot of stuff.
I guess so.
Right. So here's what they found out. They were holding on to almost $1 million of precious metals. And as of today, the Kyoto Funeral Hall is trying to figure out what they're going to do. They're going to sell it. They're going to use it to renovate or expand the place, which would probably deliver them more precious metals. Right.
That's an odd way to go digging for precious metals.
It certainly is. But just in those three stories, right, you see what's going on. Now, you don't always hear this stuff in the headlines, which is why we do a newsletter called From the Headlines. Right. But this is what's happening today. And it's an indicator to you of where things are going. If central banks are in a hurry to get stuff, thieves are creating sophisticated rings to get their hands on catalytic converters, which contain precious metals. And then the Kyoto Funeral Home is basically plowing through finding precious metals and saying, we're going to sell this. It's pretty good indicators to where things are going, right?
And let's just be honest. I mean, there was, gold and silver at the bottom of the Twin Towers before they went down.
That is also true.
So
a lot of people don't realize that.
Right. So I want to go, where's all of our precious metals going?
Interesting, because all of a sudden there's shortages and things.
Of course.
Right? Isn't that interesting? Right. So let's transition to where things are going, right? Because most of you catch up with us, you say, look, I love getting the foundation, but let's talk about where things are going. Right. So we're going to look at 3 places that you need to be looking at. So here's the peer into the future, thanks to Parable, our market research tool. Number 1, gold and silver is going to become way more practical. Right? As the world goes today, it's upside down. As currencies around the world go upside down, including Turkey's, by the way. So an interesting stat here, gold imports into the nation of Turkey are up 1,700% this year.
There's something going on.
There's something seriously going on. So that's going to be significant. And when we say that, is that if you have gold and silver or other precious metals already, certainly keep them, but be thinking about smaller denominations. This is why silver is so good, because you can practically get your hands on it. It's not overly expensive yet, but you can get it in things like junk silver 1965 dimes, which are very popular. That may be a mode of direct exchange as things begin to happen, right? As currencies crater, people go back to the things that they know hold value. Basics, right? So gold and silver will become way more practical. That's number 1. Number 2, these precious metals, gold, silver, palladium, platinum, rhodium, are going to spike massively in value.
Yep.
Now, maybe you've heard that before, but we see silver getting to triple digits potentially. And maybe you've heard that before too, but the reasons why aren't necessarily to try to sell you gold and silver, right? We're a research company. We're not necessarily in that business. silver's a really good bet right now for its practical value. And if you catch it beforehand, it will assess or appreciate in value significantly. But we talked a minute ago about the catalytic converters. Well, all of those precious metals, as the resource wars really kick up, if you didn't realize it, China owns most of the mines around the world that produce these precious metals. We did a research report back in 2015 on China's influence, and we said what they're going to do is they're going to go and buy up all the mines where the precious metals are located so that they control them, because they have plans. That was the Belt and Road Initiative to connect the world and increasing their influence. They own a number of ports on the African continent. They own some here in the US, right? It allowed them to do that because they control the means of production, which means they control the means of distribution.
Which means they control currency, really.
Really. And so in the resource wars, as others say, well, wait a minute, we want our cut. We don't like what we're being charged for it. If you have these things, they're going to skyrocket in value because they're going to become more scarce, or people are going to be looking for alternative areas or resources to get them. So we see a huge spike coming. And since we're on the green thing for a minute here and the whole eco-friendly stuff, we talked to you about the Prius, right? So, you know, the Prius needs a bigger catalytic converter with more materials to be green. What do you think is going to happen with massive green initiatives around the world? Those precious metals are going to come more into demand. And that means that their price is going to increase. Skyrocket, right? Oh, by the way, if you wonder why your iPhone is actually so expensive,
that's the reason why.
It's got gold in it, right? Gold and silver are great conductors for a number of things. iPhones use gold. That's why you pay $1,500 for one now. Wow. Yeah, right. It's more than like 2 or 3 car payments, but that's the reality, right? These things are going to skyrocket. And the final one, a bit more ominous, but we're in the business of making sure you know what's coming. There are going to be a number of attempts at currency resets, including the central bank digital currency, which if you haven't seen our Sherlock's Roundtable or our discussions with Nick V or Ann Vandersteel or Carl Jackson on the Carl Jackson show on this, we talk extensively about the CBDCs or the central bank digital currencies. So as nations, states, and communities try to hedge for what's going on, there may be a large group or community in the United States that says, you know what? We think the currency is going to crash. We're going to invest heavily in gold and silver so that we can continue with a parallel economy based on a currency or sound money that everybody understands. That's a reality, right?
So my favorite story is about Russia and how the central banks turned off their monies, but thank God Russia had the gold and they had the cryptocurrency, so they were able to continue doing what they needed to do. I mean, like, you know.
So that's really an abject lesson in preparation. The world thought that they were going to kick Putin off the banking system. Now, this isn't a pro-Putin or anti-Putin thing. This is a factual thing. They thought that they were going to kick him and Russia off the SWIFT banking system. And what Putin had done in advance is he had stocked up on gold, but he had also stocked up on cryptocurrency. So when they kicked him off the international banking system, he managed to move $500 billion through cryptocurrency.
So the point of the conversation is, if they can do it to Putin and an entire country, they can do it to you.
Right. And that's part 2 of this here is that while you hedge your bets and others hedge their bets, Big Brother doesn't like that. The government hates competition. We were just talking about this, right? They're going to be in your business about your precious metals and what you're doing and what you're trying to grab. If you don't believe us, go back and look at FDR's gold confiscation order. It's like, if you got it, I want it.
That's right.
You can't keep it. It's illegal. And it was illegal for a number of years in the US to hold gold or silver, like to hold gold.
My grandparents told me about the story.
Yeah. It's crazy. So if you don't think that's possible, we're going to actually point you to an article on Bloomberg about the World Gold Council. So a gentleman named David Tate, who runs the World Gold Council, said he wants to make the gold trading market more liquid by tracking every single ounce of gold. You know why? He's got 500 billion reasons to do so.
Wow.
That's the gold reserve he's sitting on, right? So the 3 things that are on the horizon for you, gold and silver is going to become way more practical. Precious metals are going to spike in value. And there are going to be attempts at currency resets. Big Brother's going to be paying attention. So you need to be cautious.
So I always look at it from a business perspective. I want to make sure that I can do business commerce with other companies, right? So we need to have a system. If our fiat system goes kaput, right, then what? How are we doing business with each other?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that leads into the bonus round here before we get to what we're doing, because people always ask us. So we decided in this research report, we're going to talk to you about what we've come up with. The bonus round here is you'll want to keep a lot of those precious metals handy physically, right? So if you own gold and silver and it's vaulted somewhere, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But our suggestion through looking at the research is that if you can keep a good amount of that physically with you in some way, that's a really good idea. Because if things go sideways, you've just got gold sitting somewhere, and that ain't going to be your gold. And if you don't like it, somebody will show up and help you to understand why. That may sound ominous, but it's true, right? This is what's happening. People ask us, hey, what's going on in the research? What do I need to know? Our general response is you don't want to know.
Right.
Right. But this is a reality. If you can keep it on you, by all means, try to do that. Whatever you can get your hands on physical is a really good idea. So on to what we're doing. Right. So here's what we've come up with. We know that the need is urgent. So we actually created the Sherloc EZ platform. And we've got an amazing vendor for gold and silver and 7K metals. Like these guys have great experience. So we created the Sherloc EZ platform because we had to figure out how we could get the majority of people access to something like precious metals and education in an easy way. So here's the cool part about Sherloc EZ. Barrier to entry, super low. You can literally start, if you got $5, $500, $5,000, and you want to invest in gold and silver, you can do it. It's a membership model. We always call it's like Costco for gold and silver, right? So it checks that box, low barrier to entry. If you've ever tried to call one of those gold commercials that you saw, they say, oh, look, if you don't have 10 or 15, $20,000, have a nice day, pound sand, right? They'll tell you that. So it checks that box. The other one that it checks is the education side. People are inherently curious, right? Because you've heard of people getting scammed, they're being fake precious metals. So you want to be educated on what's what. You want to understand the difference between bullion and collectibles and all this other stuff, right? That lives within the Sherloc EZ ecosystem. So we're excited about that. Everything is verified, right? So you know it's real. There is a standard that goes with this. And not only is it real, but if it ain't in stock, you can't buy it. You know, I recall we had a friend recently go through this process in the 6-figure range where they made a purchase and it wasn't there.
And she wanted her money back.
She wanted her money back and had to work hard to get it back.
And she lost 10,000 over that.
Wow. I mean, that's real though, right? This is what happens when you don't have an ecosystem that's protected. Sherloc EZ, that ecosystem, has taken care of it. So it's guaranteed, right? You know what you're getting is real. So we've checked the boxes of it's affordable, low barrier to entry, great education, know what to do, know what not to do. There's other stuff on the technology side that's absolutely amazing, including the ability to buy gold and silver fractionally. That was a huge one because maybe you don't have $35 for an ounce of silver or $2,000 for an ounce of gold, but you've got $100. And so you want to buy a part of it. Well, with the technology in the Sherloc EZ ecosystem, you can now do that. So that's what we're up to. With this research, and when we talk to people and they say, RC, Juliana, what should we do? We say, where are you at? And so if you've got plenty of money, great. You know, you're not going to have a problem. You can call one of those places and you're all good to go. But if you don't, or you want to start practically, or you're not sure what to do, the Sherloc EZ ecosystem takes care of that.
Love that.
Isn't that awesome?
I know. It makes it so much easier.
Yes, it certainly does.
Well, I didn't know how to enter into the, the conversation. I didn't know the first thing between, like you said, bullion and coins and collectibles and what do I do and what's defense, what's offense and whatnot. And
it's all there in one place.
Yes, that's
right.
All there.
Super easy. Guys, so as we wrap up here, a couple of sites that will be super helpful to you. If you're interested in Sherloc EZ, go to Sherloc EZ, the letter EZ, SherlocEZ.com. This will be in the notes with the video that you're watching right now. If you'd like more information on our investigative publication and our daily newsletter, Sherloc Exposes, you can go to SherlocExposes.com. And if you want to learn more about the market research and competitive intelligence that we do here at Sherloc, you can go to our favorite website of all time, InvestInAnswers.com.
Great tag.
Yes, InvestInAnswers.com. Juliana, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
This special red alert, we hope it's helpful for you guys. There are going to be a ton of these coming down the road. As the times change, the demand is there. We'll continue to deliver the insights that we have and what we understand to try to help you to navigate the waters that are going to be choppy ahead. So guys, we appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Visit investinanswers.com.